Hi, my name is Bahadur Ahmedov. Welcome to the course of statistics. In this lecture, we're going to discuss the guides when you need to use the t-table and when you need to use the z-table when you construct the confidence intervals in order to estimate the population mean. So if you remember the steps of constructing the population, constructing the confidence intervals are more or less the same always. So first thing which you have to do is you need to choose a sample from the population. Then you need to calculate the mean of the sample. Then you need to construct the interval around the sample by adding and subtracting the error margin. And the only thing which is different is the technical calculation process of this error margin. So the formula of the error margin contains this critical point, which is going to be found differently depending on the different situations. Sometimes we need to use a z-table, and sometimes we need to use the t-table in order to calculate this critical points. And the only question is when to use the z-table and when we need to use the t-table. So I would like to give you the pseudocode or the algorithm, how you need to, so what you need to do step by step in order to know when to use the z-table and when you need to use the t-table. So let's assume that I would like to give you a sample and ask you, hey, so here is a sample, tell me, estimate me the population's mean. So what you have to do is you just take a sample and go through the following steps and tell me, okay, so do that or do this. So you take a sample and calculate or count the number of the items inside the sample. If the number of the items inside the sample is more than 30, then you need to use the z-table no matter what is the distribution of the population. You use the z-table in order to find the critical points, plug this into the formula of the error margin and calculate the interval. But if the sample size is less than 30, everything is complicated. It is not so straightforward that, hey, you have to use the t-table. So if the sample size is less than 30, now you need to ask me again the additional questions about the population, whether the population has a normal distribution or not. So if the population is normal distribution, then we can do something. But if the population has different distribution rather than normal, then the game is over. So if the population has a uniform distribution or skewed distribution, then we can't really calculate or create the confidence intervals. But if the population is normally distributed, then what we have to do is we still check one more condition, whether we know the sigma, where the sigma is the population's standard deviation. And it looks really strange when I say, hey, we know the population standard deviation, but we don't know what does the population mean, right? So if you know the standard deviation of the population somehow, according to your experience or according to the previous year's data, or somehow you know the standard deviation of the population, then again, you need to use the z-table. So only in a case when the sample size is less than 30, the population has a normal distribution, and you don't know what is the population's standard deviation, then you can use the t-distribution. And in this case, you need to use the sample standard deviation in order to substitute the population's standard deviation. So now we're going to consider a couple of cases, and we're going to decide what table we are going to use in order to construct the confidence intervals. So the first case is the number of the items in your sample is equal to 50. The distribution of the population is skewed. It is not normal, so it's skewed. It means that the high top of the normal distribution is moved either to the left, either to the right. And the standard deviation of, and you are given the standard deviation of the sample, it is equal to the 2.5. So again, we need to start from the beginning, whether the sample size is bigger than 30 or not. So in this case, n is equal to the 50, which is bigger than 30, then the answer is clear. We need to use the z-table. So we can create a confidence interval. So in this case, it doesn't really matter what is the distribution of the population, okay? So, so the theoretical basis on this is lying on the central limit theorem. So if you don't remember, or if you would like to understand more deeper why the things are happening in this way, just go through our video about the central limit theorem and watch this one more time. So the second problem is, so n is equal to the 25, distribution is skewed, and we know again the standard deviation of the sample. Again, we need to go through all the steps. So first thing which we need to check whether n is more than 30 or not. So in this case, n is obviously less than 30, right? So if no, now we need to check whether the population is normal or distributed or not. So we are given that the distribution of the population is not normal, so it is skewed. So the highest point of the normal distribution is moved. So if no, then sorry, we can't really calculate the error margins, and we can really create the confidence interval in this case. So in the last case, if n is equal to the 25, distribution is normal, and a sigma is given to be equal to the 4.12, then what we have to do? Again, we need to check whether n is more than 30 or not. If this is less than 30, we need to check whether the distribution is normal or distributed or not. So the population is normal or distributed or not. So in this case, the population has a normal distribution. And at the end, we need to check whether we are given the standard deviation of the sample or the population. In the previous examples, we were given the standard deviation of the sample, but luckily in this case, we're given the standard deviation of the population. So we know what is the sigma. So since we know what is the sigma, then we need to use again the Z table. So just print out this algorithm, keep it in this mind, and try to solve a couple of problems using our online quizzes in order to be experienced on what to do in the different situations.